Just waiting for confirmation.
We're live.
Welcome to the Best in the West Democratic National Convention event. We have delegates and representatives here from 14 different Western states for this historic event. And tonight, a West Coaster, California Senator Kamala Harris, will officially be nominated for the role of vice president. And it's also historic to have a Black and an Asian woman as our next vice president. My name is Tina Podlodowski. I'm chair of the Washington State Democrats. And a reminder that collectively our states would be the fourth largest economy in the world if we came together as one. So it's clear why it is best in the West. From the highest mountain in the land to the productive farmlands that feed our nation, to the gorgeous prairies and epic deserts, incredible cities, all topped off by a Pacific coastline that is second to none, the West has it all, including putting our people first, something the West Coast does best, and celebrating the amazing diversity of our tribal nations partners, Black Americans, Latinx and Hispanic Americans, Asian Pacific Islander Americans, LGBTQ Americans, and of course, we are all union strong. The West can tip the balance in the Senate this year too, with Steve Bullock in Montana, Mark Kelly in Arizona, John Hickenlooper in Colorado, and two candidates that you'll hear from later, Dr. Al Gross in Alaska, and the amazing Paulette Jordan in Idaho, with her historic run as the female Native American candidate for the United States Senate. But we're going to hear from Paulette right now. With that, let's start with Paulette Jordan, again from Idaho, running for the Senate, to provide a land acknowledgement for the 14 states and territories. Paulette?
Well, thank you, Tina, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paulette Jordan, and thank you for being here. I'm a member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, running to be Idaho's first female senator and the country's first Native American woman in the U.S. Senate. And I've been asked to provide this land acknowledgement today, which is a great honor. And I want to thank the organizers, first and foremost, for creating this space to honor and acknowledge our Indigenous peoples, whom are the first peoples of this land. And with 14 states and territories, we would be listing hundreds of tribes and nations as the Indigenous peoples of the West. And I'm coming to you today from McCall, Idaho, the land of my grandfather, Chief Joseph of the Nimiipuu Nation. And I come to you today as a daughter of the West, of the great leaders of the Pacific Northwest, such as Chief Moses, Chief Joseph, Chief Wiawicht of the Yakama Nation, Chief Kamayakin of the Palouse, and Chief Leshai. We inherit their legacy of stewardship over the land for many generations. And the practice of land acknowledgement helps raise awareness about histories of America that are often suppressed or forgotten. And there have always been Indigenous peoples here in the spaces we call home, and there will always be Indigenous peoples here. The land acknowledgement process is about remembering what it took for us to get here and how we can be accountable to our part in history. And we have many incredible leaders, lots of folks here on this call, so I want to take this time to encourage you to engage with this land acknowledgement process. And the first step is identifying the traditional inhabitants of the lands you're on. You can offer your acknowledgement as the first element of a welcome to the next virtual gathering, or even an event that you host. And it's a very good way to build a relationship with members of the Native community. And so you might consider inviting them to join you to give them a welcome before yours. And it is our responsibility and our purpose to continue this legacy of defending the rights of nature. We are ambassadors of the land, the water, and the wildlife, and we share a spiritual connection with these elements and these sacred beings. And when nature honors us, sacrificing its very life at the times like this just to nourish us, and nature honors us in all these many ways to provide for us. So we must honor nature in turn, and preserve our lands for future generations. So we must uphold this responsibility to maintain this sacred way of life. With that being said, I want to thank you all for this opportunity. Lim Limsh.
Thank you so much, Paulette, and we really appreciate you and appreciate everything that you're doing to be able to run for the Senate. And we are so excited to get you there in the Senate from Idaho as well. And we'll hear from Paulette a little bit later too. So as the incoming chair of the Western States Caucus of the DNC, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our outgoing chair at his last convention, the wonderful Jess Durfee. A former chairman of the San Diego County Democratic Party, Jess has been an elected member of the Democratic National Committee since 2008, and the only one south of Los Angeles, as he will proudly note. But Jess also has connections to 3 Western coastal states as a graduate of Oregon State University for both his undergrad and master's degree, go Beavers, and as a teacher in the Vancouver, Washington area for a number of years. His experience, his calm, and his grace will be missed. Thank you for your service, Jess. Jess Durfee, you are amazing, and we are all utterly grateful that you've stepped up, and we're so pleased that we'll still continue to have your help and your friendship. So thank you, Jess. I also want to acknowledge all of our amazing state parties and state party staff. So kudos to the Washington Democrats and our staff, the Oregon Democrats and their incredible chair, Casey Hansen, the Idaho Democrats and their chair, Van Beechler, the North Dakota Democrats and Kylie Overson, their fantastic chair, the South Dakota Democrats and their chair, Randy Seiler, the Northern Mariana Islands Democrats and Daniel Kitugwa, their chair, Guam Democrats, and Guam is absolutely gorgeous. I've had an opportunity to visit there. When we can all fly again, you should too. John Jr. Calvo is their chair and doing a terrific job. In Wyoming, Chair Joe Barbudo. In Colorado, Chair Morgan Carroll. In Arizona, the Arizona Dems and Chair Felicia Rotellini. In New Mexico, the incredible New Mexico Dems and Marg Elliston. In Utah, the Utah Dems and Jeff Merchant. In Alaska, Casey Steinow and the Alaska Dems. And then, of course, the California Democratic Party headed by Rusty Hicks. So with that, let me turn over our program to the coolest state party chair in so many different ways, Alaska's own Casey Steinow.
Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. And let me just thank you for the work that you do. We really appreciate you. So as Tina said, my name is Casey Steinow, and I am fortunate enough to be the chair of the Alaska Democratic Party. A recent public policy poll showed that the presidential race may be the closest it's been in Alaska since the 1960s. And with 49% of those polling disapproving with President Trump, Joe Biden is within striking distance of Trump. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has endorsed Elise Galvin, and our own DNC chairman, Tom Perez, has recently held a virtual fundraiser for Dr. Al Gross for U.S. Senate. Both are well positioned and poised to couple their gains with up-ticket and down-ballot races, because in Alaska, like I'm sure where you are, all politics is local. And with these teams, they can ensure wins for us in November. It is essential that we win up and down the ticket, but we have to take the Senate back to support President Biden and enact real policy changes. Dr. Al Gross will speak to you today, and I urge you to support his campaign. He is endorsed by our party and reflects our independent spirit. Al is dedicated to repairing our country. And now I'm so excited to be introducing the next speaker, my friend and the Alaska State Senate Minority Leader, Mr. Tom Begich. Elected in 2016, Senator Tom Begich represents many diverse Anchorage neighborhoods. He currently serves as the Senate Minority Leader and is a member of the Senate Education, Health and Social Services, Ethics, Legislative Council, and Rules Committees. Senator Begich is a demonstration of the leadership that we desperately need at the federal level, and we are so fortunate to have him in our state Senate. Tom is a master at building relationships and influences. He cares, he's compassionate, and he never compromises our future for short-term political, personal wins. As many of you know, Tom comes from a political family. His father, Nick Begich, served in the House of Representatives, and his brother, Mark, served in the U.S. Senate. Tom understands education to serve, and so his commitment to service is none less. It is in his blood. Senator Tom Begich is a tireless advocate for labor, and he has led many bills on education. We look forward to delivering him more Democrats to build a coalition, and even better, a Democratic majority in our Senate. I'll end by noting that Tom is also an accomplished musician, of whom I am a fan. And I have no doubt if we were not in the middle of COVID-19, he would certainly be playing songs for us as we celebrate our fantastic convention together. And at least we're celebrating it here together virtually. So, fellow delegates, it is my pleasure to present Senator Tom Begich. Tom?
Thank you so much. Very generous introduction. Totally appreciate that. I also would like to say that I'm here speaking from the traditional lands of the Dena'ina people, and pleased to have the honor of being able to do that here in my work-a-day office in Anchorage, Alaska. Casey's right. I am a professional musician and the state Senate minority leader, and I do believe that relationships matter. In Alaska, for years, we have bucked the trends. And this year, I would like us to actually follow the trend that will elect Joe Biden president of the United States. My hope is that we will do that in a manner, in a way that adds our numbers, our 3 electoral votes to that margin. Now, back in 2014, when my brother narrowly lost his re-election for the United States Senate, we bucked the trend and added House members to our state House delegation. In 2016, we added even more, and we organized in coalition by building relationships across the aisle in the state House. And by 2016, we added even more, and we not only recreated the coalition in the state House, but as minority leader, I worked closely with the Republican Senate president to defeat the draconian Trumpian agenda of our governor and to preserve education and to fight for what matters. Now, in Alaska, we have a closed primary on the Republican side and an open primary for everyone else. So yesterday we had our election, and a number of those moderate Republicans who worked with us Democrats were thrown out by their own party in exchange for far more conservative folks. We think that that poses opportunities for Democrats. We will miss our colleagues, but we will fight to create a coalition and/or Democrat majority in the Senate, and we will continue to hold a majority in the House. But that is not enough. Yesterday, we also elected both Al Gross and Elise Galvin to represent us on the Democratic ticket as independents in the coming general election. And that matters to Joe Biden. When he talks about the trust that Americans need to have in their government, when he talks about rebuilding that trust, when Joe Biden talks about the importance of building back better, he needs allies to do that. As a consequence, I am hopeful that we will elect my friend Al Gross and my friend Elise Galvin to the United States Senate, United States House. But I want to take a moment to share with you how important our U.S. House election is here first, before I go into the U.S. Senate. Here right now, the latest polling has the Elise Galvin tied with the, quote, Dean of the United States House, a man my father beat back in 1972, Don Young. They're tied today. That seat may matter in this election. If it comes down to a close election, disputed because of absentee ballots, that ends up in the United States House, it'll be the incoming U.S. House. 50 votes that will determine who the next president of the United States is. This U.S. House district, an at-large district, will be one of those 50 votes. And if Elise Galvin wins, she will be one of those 50 votes. We need that insurance. We haven't been in this situation since 1968. We need to be sure that we elect Elise Galvin so that we have that vote. But more importantly, when it comes to who governs, you need to have the United States Senate. We learned that painfully in the 6 years of the 8 years of the Obama administration, that without the US Senate, you cannot move forward. And that's where Al Gross comes in. Without Al Gross in the United States Senate, the president will be denied an important ally. Joe Biden needs Al Gross, and we need Joe Biden. This is a battle for the soul of America. It's a battle for the soul of democracy. It's important for all of us to get behind Joe Biden, Al Gross, and Elise Galvin as we move forward into this next presidential election. We must work together to ensure that we all succeed. With that, I am so pleased to be able to introduce to you Dr. Alan Gross, who not only as a doctor operated on my knee, but as a public servant, he has been advocating for medical reform throughout Alaska. He's been arguing for the best kind of change that we could possibly hope for. And yesterday, my union, IBEW, came out in favor of and endorsed Al Gross for United States Senate. Without further ado, please, Dr. Alan Gross.
Well, thank you very much, Senator, and thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this today. And I think you can all see me and hear me. I hope you can. Anyway, it's an honor to be here. We're well on our way to winning and flipping the U.S. Senate seat up here. I'm a lifelong Alaskan. I'm a doctor, as Senator Begich mentioned. I'm also a commercial fisherman, and I've got very, very deep connections in the state through my family. And I've been following politics since I was a young kid. I never thought I would get involved with it until about 4 years ago when I really got mad and saw what was going on to my state and my country. And I stepped up to do this because I saw a wide open avenue for me to win this race. And I moved to Anchorage. I started meeting with people from all over the state, many of whom I've known since I was a young kid, including Senator Tom Begich, Senator Mark Begich, and Casey Steinau at a very early stage in this race. And I was able to build a tremendous coalition, and we launched our race in July. Since then, I've been significantly out fundraising the incumbent Dan Sullivan, who has really very little to do with the state in the first place. He's only been in the state for several years before he turned around and ran and beat Senator Mark Begich by just 6,000 votes. And this state is full of independents, 57%. It's a huge swing vote, and it is people very frequently split tickets in this state. And as Senator Begich mentioned, Trump only won the state with 51% of the vote. Our race has been upgraded by both Cook and Sabato. James Carville's predicting we are going to win the race, and we've got some very, very strong polling, both internal and public, suggesting that we can win this race by a significant margin. We're developing an incredible field operation where we will be having 32 regional organizers and over 250 paid employees in all of the villages across the state to get out absentee ballots and to get our message out across the state. And because of the race's viability, now the Lincoln Project has targeted this state, and they're all in on this state along with Montana and Maine. So we're really glad to have them behind us as well. The most important takeaway from this, though, is that this is compared to other viable Senate races, by far and away a cheap Senate seat. There are only 3 media markets in Alaska. You can completely saturate them with $3 or $4 million. We've already raised very close to $6 million. We've got about $3 million cash on hand. And so any further funding that we raise at this point goes directly into our field operation. And that's really important. I come from coastal Alaska, rural Alaska, and getting out that vote will be a very important part of our strategy to win. So I think I'll just leave it at that, but it's a really viable race. I am definitely the little engine that could, and I've been working really hard on this for really close to 3 years now. I started writing and speaking about healthcare costs as they related to the Alaskan economy, made a name for myself statewide because of it. And of course, Dan Sullivan, the incumbent, has voted against affordable healthcare over and over again. It's really his weak spot in a state where healthcare costs are higher than any other state in the country. So it's a very relevant topic to be speaking on. I come from very deep roots in the state. My father was the attorney general that created the universal basic income check and the oil sovereign wealth fund up here. So I understand other aspects of the state in a way that's a little bit unique. I had a very unusual childhood, and I care deeply about how Alaska is doing. And that's really what inspired me to step up. And since then, of course, our country is becoming split more and more apart, and our democracy is being threatened, and national issues are very much more relevant these days than when when I first stepped up. But I'm doing it for both reasons. I will caucus with the Democrats. I've been an independent since I was 18. But if you look at my platform, you'll see that most of my values are to the left. And I've met with leadership in the Senate, and they are very understanding that my best pathway to win is to remain as an independent. So thank you very much. Please contribute to the campaign if you can. I'd sure appreciate your help.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. This is Van Beechler, Chair of the Idaho Democratic Party, coming to you from the Gem State. We're here to tell you some of the great things we've been up to the last couple of years and to introduce our U.S. Senate candidate, Paulette Jordan. To give you some highlights, in 2018, we flipped 5 legislative seats and 6 county seats. The DNC has called us the state party, the little engine that could. We're excited to be here, and I'm excited to introduce you all to our U.S. Senate candidate, Paulette Jordan. She's running to be Idaho's first female senator and the country's first Native American woman in the U.S. Senate. She's a born and raised Idahoan, a working mother of 2 young sons, a proud member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe. She grew up on the reservation on her family farm and served as a member of her tribal council. She then served 2 terms in the Idaho legislature, representing a traditionally red district. And in 2018, was the first female, first Native American Democratic gubernatorial candidate for Idaho. And even though unsuccessful, she brought in more votes than any other Democratic gubernatorial or congressional candidate in Idaho history. Today, she's continuing that movement. Her race is gaining national attention as a winnable seat with a vulnerable incumbent, Jim Risch. For the first time in a very long time, we've got a real shot at a Senate seat in Idaho. That is why we're seeing a surge in momentum with endorsements from the DSCC, Democracy for America, the National Women's Political Caucus, and others. Please welcome my friend and Idaho's next senator, Paulette Jordan.
All right, thank you, Van. And thank you all for having me. As I mentioned, my name is Paulette Jordan, and I do love that we are the little engine that could. Whatever it takes to feel like we go country strong and we roll hard. We actually ride till the wheels fall off. That's how powerful we can be when we believe in something together. So just to remark on the words that I've shared earlier in the land acknowledgement, we inherit their legacy of stewardship over the land for many generations. And it's a legacy that I'm very proud of because we're all connected to one another spiritually. And it's beautiful that we can come together, at least virtually for now, because we want to be able to support each other. We have much to do. And for our people, for our land, for our water, for our livelihoods and our families. And I know that the responsibility can seem enormous at times. But I'm proud of the West and how we stand ready to take bold action to not only improve upon a system of government, but to rebuild back better a government that works for all people. And I'm proud of the legacy of Indigenous people and the leadership that we offer. Staying close to nature, staying close to humanity, putting differences aside, and engaging in relationships based on trust, spiritual connection to the land, the people, wildlife. That is our way. That is the way of our people. And we're still here. And some of the ideals that we hold near and dear and hold sacred, recognizing the rights of nature and protecting the land for future generations, these are all foundational values that we are continuing for thousands of years. And I want to say that these practices that our people have engaged in for centuries, they are now seen as progressive and even sometimes radical. And now we're running for office, and here we are. We want to advance the voices that are here to continue this fight to defend the West. And then I want to thank you, everyone who's running and who's on this call. I want to thank the DNC, primarily for the willingness to acknowledge the truth, which isn't easy, because while we have a long way to go, I'm grateful for the next generation of leadership who are rising up to represent their communities, fighting strong with the truth and having integrity in the process, which is very rare in politics. In our country, while it was founded on tragedy and corruption, it is our responsibility to bring these truths to light to begin the healing process for our nation, and this healing process that our children deserve. And like many Idahoans, I was raised on this land, on my family farm of the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, and I realized how incredibly important it is to remain connected to the land. We need leaders who are going to respect our land and who are willing to combat corporate greed in order to address climate change, We need policy which both protects our environment and contributes to economic prosperity. And now we're running for Senate to defend nature, to be a voice for the people, not for the corporations that are trying to buy our government. And we're ready to get to work in a Democratic-controlled Senate led by President Joe Biden. And I tell you, it's long overdue that women step into the highest leadership positions in government. So congratulations to Kamala as she paves the way for women of color, including Indigenous communities. And women have been leading for centuries, so we know what it's like to honor the matriarchs of our people who are in places as CEOs and as chiefs. And I stem from these great leaders who are women who were powerful chiefs. So I want to ask for your support in our race for US Senate here in Idaho. And we're excited for this opportunity because we have an opportunity to make great history and to exchange these ideals and these values within a government system that has been corrupted in so many ways, but we have an opportunity to fix it. So while we have this time to make history, this opportunity to be the first Native American woman for the US Senate, I want to ask you to join me in this fight and join me on my website, pauletteforsenate.com. Thank you all so very much. God bless.
Hi, everybody. I'm Casey Hansen. I'm chair of the Democratic Party of Oregon. Yes, the Beaver State. I'm so proud today to be able to introduce our Congressman Pete DeFazio, who is the Dean of the House Oregon delegation. He represents the eclectic 4th District in the southwest corner of the state, which serves both the beautiful southern Oregon coast as well as university towns of Corvallis and Eugene. He served in Congress since 1987, and those years of experience have only amplified his enthusiasm and energy to help lead America into a progressive and sustainable future. In 1991, Pete was one of 6 co-founders of the House Progressive Caucus, along with one of our other esteemed guests, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who joined with Ron Dellums, Lane Evans, Thomas Andrews, and another fellow you may have heard of, Bernie Sanders. Throughout the years, Pete has held true to his principles, challenging both Democratic and Republican administrations on policy, process, and appointments. Pete repeatedly and publicly challenged President Obama on the appointment of Wall Streeters Timothy Geithner and Larry Summers as Treasury Secretary and National Economic Council Director, respectively. Pete even withheld his support for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, i.e. the stimulus package, because it didn't go far enough. He even advocated for the impeachment of John Roberts because of the awful Supreme Court ruling on Citizens United. Does Pete take on Republicans? Yes. This is chapter 1, but I won't go into it. Pete doesn't just say no. For more than a decade, he has advocated for a financial transaction tax on Wall Street, which would both fund job creation and take a bite out of the deficit. As chair of the powerful House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, he pushes for job-creating green energy infrastructure investment that will help fund future generations. And so you really know what kind of guy Pete is. He has consistently voted against the congressional pay raises while the government's in deficit spending, like it usually is under the GOP. Instead, he's used his congressional salary hikes to fund scholarships at 5 Southwestern Oregon community colleges. By the end of 2018, Pete had contributed more than $437,000, which let 270 Oregon students gain higher education. He truly, truly embodies the concept of we the people. Oregonians and Americans are lucky to have him in Congress. Folks, I am proud to give you our wonderful Congressman, Pete DeFazio.
There we go. Okay. Hey, Casey, I appreciate the introduction. I'm traveling, hence I'm in a hotel room on the coast. I'm doing the circuit of the red part of my district the last few days. You know, I predicted before Trump won a single primary because of the outskirts of my district, outside of Eugene, Springfield, and Corvallis, that he was going to win because there's so many angry, disenfranchised, struggling people. And we haven't been speaking directly enough to them. They tie us to Bill Clinton and NAFTA. the WTO, MFN for China, Obama and the TPP. Those things were all passed, TPP luckily we killed, with a large majority of Republican votes, a minority of Democratic votes, but we've been tagged with them. So we have to let them know that we are with them, we're on their side. I just polled, Trump is slightly ahead of Biden in my district. So we got a lot of work to do. And it isn't just the work to bring these people back, the independents, disenfranchised Democrats, get them to the polls. It's to not let them steal the election. They're trying now to block vote by mail in the midst of a pandemic. The premise is, oh, the Postal Service is losing so much money. It's not losing money. I passed a bill with 89 Republican votes and every Democrat back in February to undo the mandate that they pre-fund 75 years of retirement health care for people who haven't been born yet, haven't gone to work for the Postal Service, and might someday retire there. Something stuck on the Postal Service during the Bush administration because the Republicans have always wanted to kill it and privatize it. So now you have DeJoy, who is a kill it privatizer, and Trump, who wants to repress the vote. Well, we're fighting back. I don't know if you've seen the video of me chained to a mailbox, but that's the kind of action we need to take. And so we're going back into session on Saturday. We're going to undo the damage DeJoy has done this year. We're going to make him put back the sorting machines. We're going to make him put back the barcoders. We're going to make him deliver the ballots on time. And you've got to join us in that fight. They're backing down. They get it. The American people, DNR, everybody likes the Post. It's the only part of government people really like anymore. And then that's part of our whole package to recover. All the bills we've passed so far are mitigating the economic damage. Now we're trying to mitigate the damage to the Postal Service, both because of COVID and because of politics. But once we get past that, we're fighting over the HEROES Act. We need a lot more assistance. We need the measures that are in there, and we'll keep pushing for that. But once we get past that, we're going to need something to recover the American economy, to build it back better. And Joe Biden is the guy to do that. I need a president who's willing to stand up for a 21st century infrastructure bill. I wrote that. We wrote it over 6 months. We had a 25-hour markup in my committee because it deals with both rebuilding our infrastructure and climate change. And the Republicans went berserk because I'm dealing with climate change. They said, oh, we'll do resilience. I said, well, you're doing resilience because of climate change, sea level rise and other things. How about we deal with the root cause and we build in resilience at the same time? We passed that bill out of the House in a larger package, which includes renewable energy out of energy and commerce, includes wastewater investment, drinking water investment to deal with a lot of the problems we see around the country. It deals with education in schools. Maxine Waters, and you'll hear from her in a bit, is doing phenomenal things on housing. We're in an incredible housing crisis, absent COVID, let alone with COVID. That's the kind of bill Joe Biden will sign, and we'll put millions of people to work at good family wage jobs with benefits under Davis-Bacon with those investments. They're investments in the future. So we have to win this election. Nothing less than the future of our representative democracy is on the line. And that's just the way it is. If these people win 4 more years, the most corrupt attorney general in history, EPA being run by coal lobbyists, all of the things they're doing to undermine everything of the last 50 years of progress in this country, we cannot afford to let them stay in office. And everybody else did an ad, I'll do one too. I've got a very difficult district. I have a celebrity running against me. He starred in the Eastwood movie. He helped stop the Paris train attack, came in 3rd on Dancing with the Stars. He's 27 years old and he's ready for Congress. They're dumping money into him, $1 million last quarter, $500,000 before. They're targeting me through super PACs and all that. So it's going to be one heck of a fight, but I'll win. And we are going to win because we're going to save the United States of America. We're going to save representative democracy. And we're going to show people that Democrats believe in a country for all of us and not just the privileged few. So thank you for being delegates. Thank you for being there or being wherever we all are. And hang tough.
Thank you, Congressman DeFazio. It's exciting to have you join us. I'm Morgan Carroll. I am chair for the Colorado Democrats. Woohoo! Welcome, everybody. Best in the West. Big thank you to Tina and our other fellow Western chairs. I'm excited to introduce our next speaker that's coming on, and you've probably seen him on the national circuit because he just is a newsmaker doing great things. Congressman Joe Neguse comes from our 2nd congressional district in Colorado. He was just elected in 2018 and has wasted no time. He previously served in Colorado as executive director in the cabinet, overseeing our largest consumer protection agency in Colorado. I think he was just 31 at the time, one of the youngest executive directors we've ever had in the state, doing some of the most important work for consumers in this state. And he ran, as I mentioned, for the first time in 2018. He is making history in a lot of different ways. Congressman Joe Neguse is the first Eritrean American to serve in the United States Congress. And he's the first ever African-American to serve in Congress from the state of Colorado. He also made history with a very quick rise to new Democratic leadership at the national level, representing the freshman class for the 116th Congress. Change is on the way, and Congressman Neguse is absolutely part of it. He pioneered a service-oriented town hall, partnering with local nonprofits, raising issues, fostering civic engagement, a real hands-on, even in the era of COVID, approach to town halls and community engagement. He's already introduced over 45 pieces of legislation, I think the most actually of anybody in the class. Of course, we need to get him a Senate, so he can get all that through. But he's been addressing things like housing, climate change, public lands, and healthcare really from day one. He sponsored a landmark legislation for us in Colorado, the CORE Act, protecting over 400,000 acres of public lands in Colorado. It is my privilege to introduce Colorado's best in the West, Congressman Joe Neguse from the 2nd Congressional District. Yay!
Well, thank you, Morgan, for that very kind introduction. You are far too kind, my friend, and definitely that introduction made me feel like I'm at the convention. So I just thank you so much for the warm words. And of course, while I am biased, I must say, having heard from all of these wonderful chairs today, and particularly here in the West, my favorite chair, of course, is the wonderful Morgan Carroll, who has helped tremendously over the course of her career, not just as the party chair, but before she became party chair as the Senate president here in Colorado of our state Senate, in really turning our state from red to purple to blue. And we have a chance to complete that transition here in just a few months when we elect John Hickenlooper as our next United States Senator for the state of Colorado and flip that red Senate seat to a blue seat, so that, as Morgan said, we can finally gain control of the Senate in Washington, and ultimately all of these great pieces of legislation that me and my colleagues, both in the freshman class and across the House Democratic Caucus, have worked on for the better part of the last 18 months. It's been a privilege to serve with so many incredibly talented Democrats in the House caucus, including, of course, the dean of Oregon's delegation and the dean of our region. Colorado is in the same congressional region as Oregon, Mr. DeFazio, who as chairman of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee has been a mentor to me and so many other freshman members as we work to ultimately build towards a renewable energy future, recognizing the need to leverage our infrastructure improvements to get there. Look, I know you all recognize the stakes of this election. If you didn't, you wouldn't be serving as delegates or participating in the convention. And I want to thank you for your willingness to step up at this critical juncture for American democracy. I have served on the Judiciary Committee since I was sworn into the United States Congress, and in that role have had a front seat to witnessing some of this president's most egregious abuses of power, the way in which he has undermined the rule of law and eroded the fundamental norms that have governed our country for generation after generation. We have to make sure that he is denied a second term. And I know you all agree that Joe Biden is that candidate to bring humility, decency, empathy, generosity, kindness, and dignity back to the White House. And of course, he will have a great partner in the next Vice President of the United States, Senator Kamala Harris, whom I've had a chance to know and get to know as both a Westerner member of Congress and also as a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. We know here in the West that Vice President Joe Biden is the right person at the right moment to lead not just the western part of our country, but ultimately the entire country. Because the issues that we experience here in Colorado are unique to the Rocky Mountain West and to the Pacific Coast, right? When we think about, for example, the terrible wildfires that are raging across our state right now, the second largest fire in our state history, firefighters bravely fighting those blazes here in our state, including in 2 different places in my district. We know that drought and wildfires are becoming all too common here in our state and across the West as a result of climate change. And we need a bold leader in the White House who's going to ultimately take the steps that we need to take to save our planetary system from collapse. We've got to make sure that we have a president like Joe Biden who understands that driving towards a renewable energy future is completely plausible and within our reach. We just have to have the political will to go out and do it. We know Vice President Biden, and he knows us. I can remember when Vice President Biden was here in our state 10 years ago with President Obama signing the Recovery Act at that time as we worked our way back from the Great Recession. And with Vice President Biden's leadership, we built an economy that ultimately lifted so many folks out of poverty and were able to overcome so many of the challenges posed by that Great Recession. He did it before. He can do it again. And he's talked about that over the course of this campaign in terms of his plan to build back better. So look, it's all on the line. We've got to do everything we can this November to make sure that Vice President Biden is elected as our next president and that we flip these important Senate seats in Colorado, in Idaho, in Alaska. What an opportunity for you to hear from such talented and thoughtful people who have a servant's heart and will bring that approach to their work in the United States Congress if given that opportunity. So I thank you for the work that you're doing, and I thank you for the work that I know you'll continue to do over the course of the next 72 days. Let's get it done. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Congressman. It's fantastic to hear your voice and the terrific voices from Colorado. Woohoo, go Colorado Dems. So it's now my honor to introduce Washington's governor and a persistent and incredibly successful critic of that guy in the White House, our Governor Jay Inslee. Jay's a 5th-generation Washingtonian who's lived and worked on all sides of the state. He's worked his way through college and graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in economics before earning his law degree at Willamette University. He and his wife Trudy then moved to Selah, a small town near Yakima, where they raised their 3 sons and are now proud grandparents of 3 active little Inslees. Besides writing and illustrating books for his grandchildren and sketching scenes from around Washington, Governor Inslee is an avid cyclist and a charter member of Hoopaholics, a youth basketball academy, and he has a heck of a hook shot. I've seen it. He first became involved in public service in 1985 when he and Trudy led the effort to build a new public high school in Selah. Jay then went on to represent the 14th legislative district in our state house, continuing serving those Yakima's communities when he was elected to Congress in 1992. They then moved back and he was reelected to Congress in 1998, serving until 2012 when he was elected governor of the state of Washington. And then he was reelected in 2016, and now he is up for an historic 3rd term in 2020. During his time in Congress, he became known as a forward-thinking leader, especially on issues of clean energy and the environment, and wrote a book called Apollo's Fire about a national program to fight climate change through clean energy innovation and job creation, which helped bring him to the national scene as an expert on these issues, a place he still holds today. Under his leadership, Washington has consistently been the only state that ranks as the best place to work and the best place to do business. Washington has one of the nation's highest minimum wage laws, paid sick leave for all workers, a best in the nation paid family leave program, and some of the nation's most rigorous clean air and waste standards, as well as one of the highest union membership rates in the country. Since he became governor in 2013, Washington state has expanded voting rights, provided affordable health care to 800,000 more Washingtonians, passed the Reproductive Parity Act, stood up to the Muslim ban, protected LGBTQ Americans from discrimination, and passed historic investments in public schools and infrastructure. He has been a leading light in our state and nationally a leading light in battling the COVID pandemic with care, compassion, and resolve. Everyone, please welcome the governor of the state of Washington, the Evergreen State, the one and only Jay Inslee.
Thanks, Tina, for your leadership. You've done remarkable work. There's a couple things you left out, though, of that introduction. Number one, you extolled the virtues of Washington State, but you forgot to mention we're also the most humble state in the state of Washington. And there's something I want to add to my resume that I'm very proud of. I am a Western State Democrat, and I think the country needs Western State Democrats right now. And I want to thank everybody in this meeting of your leadership, because the country does need us. And what a remarkable moment. I'll just mention why I think this is a remarkable moment. One, this nation has been waiting for 244 years for a nominee for president west of Arkansas, and we have it in Kamala Harris. And I'm so excited about this. Look, Joseph Biden is an incredible presidential nominee, but to think we have a Western State Democrat who understands the necessity of dealing with climate change, who understands that we are better by embracing the world rather than hiding from it, who understands that good ideas start in the West and move east. I'm really excited about her candidacy and being a Western State Democrat. Second reason I'm excited right now is, look, I know we are operating in the shadow of this insecure narcissist in the White House, and this has got some of our spirits down a little bit. But I believe we need to think about this of how Winston Churchill described England during the Blitz in World War II. And somebody came up to him and said, "Hey, these are such dark days." And he said, "These aren't dark days, these are great days. These are great days because we have the most at stake. This is the most consequential election in our lifetime. And what you and I do, and everybody on this call in the next few weeks, is going to have a bigger impact on our children or our grandchildren than any other time in the last few decades. So this is a great moment to be a Western State Democrat. And I would suggest there's some values that we Western State Democrats have that are going to come in really handy in the future. Number one, value. We believe in the power of science. We believe in the power of science in defeating climate change. And that is such a fundamental difference from the current occupant of the White House. It was 130 degrees in Death Valley, the hottest temperature on Earth in 107 years the other day. We have, if you've seen the pictures of the fire tornadoes in California from the fires right now, to have a group help lead this nation of Western Democrats who believe in science is more critical than ever. So, and that has suited us very well in the fight against COVID as well. Look, we embraced science early in my state. We were the first state, as you know, to get bit by this virus. And so we moved in some of the earliest actions to insist on social distancing, to make sure that we mask up. And we're the first state to require businesses to have patrons that are masked up. We have embraced science in our state. And as a result, we've kept largely, knock on wood, a lid on this pandemic. So the embrace of science is something that I am committed to. Everybody in this room is committed to. And most importantly, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are committed to. And by the way, the climate plan that Joe Biden has put forward, I am just thrilled by it. It is ambitious, it is bold, it is comprehensive, it is robust, and importantly, it is practical because it can actually get through. Now we've got to get rid of the filibuster to do that, but we're going to pick up John Hickenlooper and Steve Bullock, and then we can get these things through. And I'm committed to that. So I'm very excited about the options we have. And the other thing I love about the Biden plan is going to put millions of people to work in clean energy. And we've seen that happening. We've seen under Michelle Lujan Grisham's work in wind energy in New Mexico and Governor Sisolak in Nevada and solar energy. We're putting science to work for the United States, and I'm pleased by that. Second value, we understand we're all in this together. And that's why we have been so committed as Democrats to make sure that we build the social safety net. And we've done that in my state. Look, with the best paid family leave, the best financial aid package, the highest minimum wage, the first long-term care proposal. And you know what happened when you do those things? According to Republicans, you've created your economy. We've created the best economy in the country. We are all in this together. Third value we have, we're going to use and learn that we can end and reduce economic and racial injustice at the same time we're fighting climate change and COVID. Because as we build our responses to these challenges, we are going to make sure that we attack racial justice at the same time. One other reason I love Joseph Biden's climate plan, where 40% of the infrastructure job is going to go to folks on the communities of color and poverty. So I'll just say that I think we've got the right values. They're coming out of the West. We're going to make sure that people understand them. And I want to thank your efforts, because you're going to help, I know, not just Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. You're going to help your Senate candidates. You're going to help your legislative candidates. And when you do, the great ideas of the Western United States are going to permeate this nation. And I believe that's true. So early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and organize. Let's go get them. And with that, I get to introduce one of the strongest, fiercest, most resilient, and most successful members of U.S. Congress, Maxine Waters. Maxine, you're always a house on fire, and we're going to build more housing because of your leadership. Take it away, Maxine.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so delighted to be with all of you this afternoon, and I have enjoyed sitting here listening to each of you talk about what's happening in your states, what's happening with elected officials, and what's happening with some of the most important issues of our time. Jay Inslee, I want to commend you not only for your leadership as governor, but you were ahead of your time in the Congress of the United States of America, a real leader on climate change. And so I hear you today talking about your commitment, and you're even stronger today than you were when you were in Congress, you know, talking about these issues when many people were not even paying attention. So I'm just delighted to witness your commitment, your strength, and your leadership. And I'm sure that the people of Washington are very, very proud of you. Tina, thank you for the work that you have put into getting us all together in the Western states. We are an important part of the United States of America. And many of you have identified the reasons why, having talked about our values, our commitment, and our basic focus on justice and equality. I want to start by talking about what we're doing to continue to support many of our new members who were responsible for us regaining 7 seats. We flipped Orange County across California in 2018, all of Orange County and all across California. So these new members have been working on legislation. They have been deeply involved in public policy. And because of their work, nearly 300 bipartisan bills sit at the desk of Senator McConnell with no action, which shows exactly why folks are frustrated with Washington. So while the GOP is doing nothing, California's freshmen, new members are keeping focus on the priorities of their local communities and stand grounded to their districts. Let me just go through them for a minute here so that you will understand how important it is for them to be in the Congress of the United States, having worked hard and having led the way in basically giving us the majority that we have. Josh Harder, he is working on an unusual issue. He is working to eliminate what is known as swamp rats that are threatening the Central Valley agriculture. You know how important agriculture is to the West. You know how important it is to California. And for these new members, and for Josh in particular, he is committed to the proposition that we can protect agriculture, that we can save agriculture, that we can have safe agriculture. And I'm just delighted to see him take the leadership on these issues. And then there's my friend TJ Cox, who is securing over $11 million in water infrastructure investment and advancing legislation to expand healthcare for rural veterans. You know, we talk an awful lot about comprehensive healthcare, about Obamacare, about healthcare for all. And we recognize that there are things that we have to do to make sure that everyone has access to comprehensive health care. And I want you to know that the rural areas need some help, and the veterans in the rural areas are now getting that help with TJ Cox. He's a wonderful representative. I had the opportunity to visit him in his district. He is well liked, he is well loved. It's a very difficult district. He's gonna have work very hard, but we're all supporting him. And then there's Gil Cisneros. Recently, he introduced legislation to provide 3,000 Korean American Vietnam veterans with VA health care. You know, we have wonderful human beings who put their lives on the line and who sacrifice so much to keep us safe. And when these veterans return to our shores, having fought, having been out there, looking out for our well-being, we must be prepared to assist them in every way that we possibly can. That goes for ensuring they have decent housing, that they have health care, that they have the assistance that they need to have a decent quality of life. And so Gil Cisneros is paying attention to that. And these Korean American Vietnam veterans had been denied. And so now he's taking care of that. And I'm very proud of him for looking beyond the traditional and moving to include those who have not been included before. And then there's Katie Porter that you've heard so much about. She's been all over television in the way that she has been able to question some of the high authorities in Washington, D.C. and some of our agencies. So on a weekly basis, she is holding Wall Street accountable to working class families, all on my committee. And then there's Harley Rauter, who introduced and signed into law bipartisan opiate legislation with Representative Mark Meadows, who's now the chief of staff for the president. Now, I don't want to talk about Meadows because I don't think there's a lot of nice things I can say about him, but Harley Rauter is very, very special. And, you know, not only has he introduced this legislation, it is bipartisan, and we still have an opiate epidemic in this country. And in certain parts of our nation, it is worse than people know about. And so he's paying attention to that. And I'm very pleased that he's moving forward. And then there's Mike Levin, who secured over $70 million for veteran housing at Camp Pendleton. Well, veterans housing. We have a housing problem, period, in the whole nation. And so you would not think that we have a housing problem at Camp Pendleton, where we think all of our veterans are being taken care of. But Mike Levin recognized the problem, and he moved to do something about it, and he secured over $70 million, which was no easy task. And I thank him for that. All of these districts that I'm talking about rejected Trump in 2016. So Democrats built upon that coalition, and with a few exceptions, won those House seats by even more in 2018. And so with recent internal polling, that is from the last couple of months, it has Trump underwater by nearly double digits in almost all of our districts. I am very pleased. We have a strong DCCC. We have a strong DCCC, and not only are they helping to raise more than adequate amounts of money, they are providing all of the services that our new members, our younger members could utilize. They are not only helping to raise money, but they're making sure that they are getting the assistance that they need in their public policy efforts. They're helping them to understand how to utilize the resources of government to respond to their constituent complaints. They're helping them to understand that they can turn to our speaker, whose doors are open all the time to be of assistance to them. They don't have to wait for days to get an appointment with the speaker. They can get in to see the speaker who works day and night to take care of our younger and our newer members. But of course, that's California. California represented by one of the strongest, most competent human beings in the history of politics, and that's Nancy Pelosi. She's smooth, she is absolutely smart, and she is one of the best negotiators that one has ever seen. She's in the business of negotiating right now on what is known as the HEROES Act. As you perhaps heard, we passed a $2 trillion bill called the CARES Act, where we were able to help pay for PPE, that is all of the equipment that is needed in our hospitals and in our nursing homes and in our clinics. But in addition to that, we had PPP, and that's the loans that we were able to get to our small businesses. We had a few problems in the beginning. The loans go through the SBA, and they are implemented by our banks. And so our banks did look out for their concierge clients and open up portals for them to be able to apply for these loans. But when that money ran out, we put in a supplemental piece of legislation for our small businesses, working with our minority depository institutions and working with our credit unions and working with our CDFIs and our community banks who are close to the community and know those businesses. And they did a marvelous job. And we targeted $60 billion so that they could have that money to offer as loans. And if they comply with what is written in law about what they have to do to be able to waive their ability, they need to repay, they are on it and they are doing that. And I'm very pleased about what we've been able to do in response to COVID-19 and to this pandemic. And so now the HEROES Act is a $3.4 trillion bill that we passed out of the House of Representatives. It languished and still, for all intents and purposes, is languishing on the Senate side. They do not wish to spend credible amounts of money to deal with the needs of our constituents. We are pleased that we were able to supplement the unemployment benefits for our unemployed by an extra $300 for each of them every week. We're absolutely pleased about the stimulus plan that we passed that had $1,200 for each of 2 adults in the family and $500 for the children. We're very pleased that we have been able to fight. And I want to tell you, our governor fought very hard to get PPE. Much of that was being commandeered by the President of the United States and directing it to the governors that he believed and knew would carry out his bidding. And so those were the Republican governors for the most part, but all of the most part. And so Gavin Newsom, our governor, fought very hard and is still fighting. California, as you know, unfortunately, have the top number of people who have gotten sick as a result of this virus, but we're fighting and we're fighting hard, and I can see the improvements. And I believe that we're going to be able to flatten that curve in the very near future. I walk down the street to go to my store. I'm in my car driving when I have to go places. Everybody's got on a mask now. Everybody's complying with what our experts have told us needed to be done. And so California, with the leadership of Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the first in the history of California, who is serving in her 2nd term now. She continues to provide the leadership that is so desperately needed by many states all over this country, but she is doing that in California. And we have been very fortunate to have very strong women We have had for many years now, both of our US senators have been females. We had Barbara Boxer, if you can remember, and Dianne Feinstein. And of course, we had Kamala Harris. And boy, are we proud of Kamala Harris, has been chosen to serve as vice president with Biden. What a wonderful team they're going to make. What a wonderful team, having the experience that Biden has had, having served in a stellar role in the United States Senate, in the leadership, who is one of the most foreign experts on foreign policy, one of the best experts rather on foreign policy. Couple that with Kamala Harris and her ability to do the kind of questioning that she has been doing for the witnesses that come before the Judiciary Committee and extract the kind of answers and information that we need, as we have been desperately trying to fight against some of the actions of the President of the United States of America. And so, despite the fact that we're all focused on making sure that this president is not reelected, and we're all still stunned by many of the actions that he has taken and the diversions that he has done and the untruths that he has told, and having faced this pandemic and doing everything that we can to comply with what we're being told by the experts. In the middle of all of this, the President of the United States has moved to literally dismantle our United States Postal Services. We're not going to have it. We are fighting. We're holding press conferences. The Speaker has asked us to come back to the House. We will be back on Saturday. We will be there to do a single vote to talk about support for our United States Postal Services and $25 billion that we will have in the bill to ensure that they have the money that they need to do the work that they do for all of us. We are very concerned about seniors who are waiting on their medicine to be delivered to them, about veterans who are waiting on their benefit checks to come to them, and for all of those people who depend, all of us who depend on our United States Postal Services. We believe that what they do for us is what helps to make our democracy strong. And as we talk to him about what we don't like, about the way that he's undermining our postal services simply because he's afraid of absentee balloting and votes. He's afraid of mail-in balloting and votes because he believes that with mail-in votes that he will not be elected. And of course, I believe that whether it is voting at the polling place or mail-in votes, he is not going to be reelected. We're not going to have it. And I know the Western states all feel that way. And so we move forward with all that's going on, with our aim to have a decent quality of life for all of our citizens, with our aim to get rid of poverty, for our aim to increase the pay and to have the kind of livable wages that will cause families to have a decent quality of life. We believe that every human being deserves to be treated with respect, to be able to have decent housing, to be able to have nutritious food, to be able to have access to health care, and to be able to have their children attend good schools that will help prepare them for the future. We're committed to that. Western states, I am so pleased that I'm a Californian and that I'm in the Western region. I'm so pleased to see us working with other states in the Western Union who really do exemplify what America is all about. So thank you for putting us all together today. And I appreciate you. I look forward to continue to working with you. Thank you for being delegates. Thank you for caring about our democracy. Thank you for sacrificing your time to ensure that we have the kind of nation that responds to the needs of its people. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Representative Waters. We so appreciate you, and we are taking this as a call to action for the Western states. We are not playing defense, we are playing offense. We are going to make sure that both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are elected to the highest offices in the land. We're going to make sure that our Senate candidates end up being the ones who flip the Senate for Democrats. And we're going to make sure that we return incredible elected officials like Representative Maxine Waters and everyone in the House to their seats. I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of our speakers today. Of course, our incredible state party chairs, but Tom Begich, the Alaska Senate Minority Leader, Al Gross, soon to be Senator from Alaska, Paulette Jordan, soon to be historic Senator from the state of Idaho, Pete DeFazio, Representative from Oregon, Representative Joe Neguse, the first Eritrean American to become a member of Congress, Eritrean American to become a member of Congress from the great state of Colorado, and of course, our governor here in Washington State, Jay Inslee, as well as a national treasure, Representative Maxine Waters. I can listen to her all day and I will follow her wherever she tells me to go. Thank you again for all of the state parties. We have hundreds of delegates and other folks listening in on this. If you are a delegate, you should have in your email inboxes information about a special Zoom call that's going to get you into breakout rooms with other delegates from across the 14 state group here that we have here today, to be able to spend some more time with your fellow delegates before it kicks off at 6 o'clock Pacific time with tonight and the historic night for Kamala Harris and our theme of a more perfect union and how we come together. So the incredible Candy Emmons from Oregon is going to take it away, tell you what to expect. And I want to give a special shout out to Candy, to Casey Hansen, to the incredible executive director of the Oregon Party, Brad Martin, and of course, Pete Lee, their vice chair. Thank you for being our technical backbone and all the fabulous things you do in Oregon. You guys rock. Candy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. So like Chairwoman said, you all should have some info if you are a delegate in your inbox of how to connect to the Zoom breakouts. As soon as you get over there, we'll get a bunch of people in the room and you'll automatically be sent into your breakout room. So please get over there as quickly as you can. If you have any issues in your breakout room, feel free to just leave the breakout and come back to the main room where staff will be ready to help you. So we will see you over there. Get over there as quick as you can.